We haven't seen the movie yet, but Marvel already told us that Fantastic Four connects directly to Avengers Doomsday. From the casting to the multiverse rules, the clues are already there, and one theory might just reveal the setup. One theory that's gaining a bit of traction is that the Fantastic Four will create an incursion event at the end of Fantastic Four First Steps. In the Ultimate Universe, Reed Richards defeats a version of Galactus by building a device called the Ultimate Nullifier, which in this universe looks quite a bit like a device seen in the final trailer for Fantastic Four. This nullifier, also called a Nevada gun, was used by Reed to access a different universe that was awaiting its Big Bang, and channeling that energy into a beam used to attack the swarm of robots. I know. Galactus isn't traditionally a swarm of anything, but in the Ultimate Universe, you see there's these bug-like robotic things called Galactus, which wind up encountering the Earth-616 version of Galactus, whom they combine with, and it's a whole thing. Point is, Reed defeats a big planet-devouring monstrosity using power garnered from elsewhere in the multiverse. It's this penetration of the multiverse that leads to what we know as an incursion, which you probably best remember from Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. In the comics, an incursion occurs when two realities' Earths collide, and in the MCU, an incursion is the result of multiversal travel, which causes one or more universes to be destroyed. I should note, however, that the exact science of incursions in the MCU hasn't really been fully explored, but will likely be explained in more depth in First Steps and Doomsday. Also worth pointing out real quick that as we saw during the post-credits scene in Thunderbolts, the Fantastic Four, or at least someone in a Fantastic Four branded rocket, is set to land on the Earth of the MCU. There's been some speculation that Doctor Doom could even be on that ship, but I'm willing to bet that it's the Fantastic Four themselves, if only because we already know that Pedro Pascal will be joined by Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Eben Moss-Backrack in Doomsday. Anyway, in the comic book event Secret Wars from 2015, an incursion takes place between the 616 and 1610 universes, which leads to both being destroyed and the remnants forming Battleworld, alongside other post-incursion universes. Battleworld's ruled over by God Emperor Doom, who created the mysterious planet using power channeled from Molecule Man, who absorbed the power of the Beyonders after a bomb made up of multiple multiversal variations of Molecule Man was detonated against them. Again, it's a whole thing. Comic books are a lot. Yeah, it's complicated. The point is that we know for certain that Fantastic Four First Steps leads directly into Avengers Doomsday, which in turn will obviously lead into Avengers Secret Wars. It's therefore a pretty safe bet that whatever Reed uses to defeat Galactus in First Steps, whether it's the Nullifier or not, will lead to an incursion event that will probably be the basis for Doomsday, wherein the different universes will collide. Therefore, Doomsday has a dual meaning. It's both the arrival of Doctor Doom as the big bad, and it's a literal Doomsday for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's also possible that Kang could wind up being replaced in a pretty organic way thanks to Reed Richards, who in the comics is the ancestor of Kang. You may very well be saying to yourself, they look nothing alike, to which I'd say they are very, very distant relatives. Now, remember anchor beings? They were properly introduced in Deadpool and Wolverine, wherein we learn that the death of an anchor being can result in the disintegration of their universe. It could be that the incursion of Earth-616 is a result of the death of the MCU's anchor being, which could be several characters, including ones we haven't met yet. It's a bit of a mystery as to who this universe's anchor being could be, but theory suggests Doctor Strange, Tony Stark, and even Kang the Conqueror. Now, this is kind of dumb, but plausible nonetheless. What if, within the MCU, Kang the Conqueror is actually a descendant of the Reed Richards of whichever universe First Steps takes place in? This could make Reed Richards the anchor being either of his universe or ours, thereby resulting in either the destruction of his universe or the salvation of Earth-616. I'm sure that the writers for Doomsday and Secret Wars will come up with something a bit more exciting or complex, but the point is that I think Reed could be an anchor being thanks to his potential relationship to Kang. It's incredibly unlikely, but it's a possibility. One clue toward this possibility comes from Jonathan Majors, who, before he got sacked, mentioned during a press conference that Kang was a Nexus being. i.e. the comic book version of anchor beings. It could be that, with this as the original plan for the character, it gets integrated into the new plan from Marvel. Of course, that anchor being plot could also be handed over to Reed's son, Franklin Richards, who in the comics winds up being one of the most powerful beings in the universe. Or heck, we can even throw out the anchor being stuff and just focus on Franklin as the potential savior of the multiverse. I suppose he could also be the MCU's version of Molecule Man in a weird way, but we're not going to delve into that. In the comics, he has the power to manipulate reality itself, which leads to him helping to restore the multiverse after its collapse. This is after Reed resurrects Franklin and the rest of his family, who were killed during the final incursion between Earth 616 and 1610, when Reed's so-called life raft had a hull breach. Again, comics. Probably not going to happen exactly the same way. But that's comics. This tragic loss could occur at the end of First Steps, or more likely the end of Doomsday. Either way, it's another little thing from the comics which could set up a lot of interesting events for Doomsday and Secret Wars. Another idea that just popped into my noggin is that Franklin could very well survive and simply become depowered during Doomsday, and that the passing of time could give us an aged-up version of him to help things along during Secret Wars. In the Secret Wars comic, I think like 8 years passes by, so that's how you get your age difference. Obviously, it's hard to say exactly what will happen, but it seems like Franklin, who's at least born in First Steps, will be a major part of the MCU going forward. Now, that all said, none of it really accounts for Franklin's role in First Steps itself. Being that Galactus is our big bad, the question becomes, how will Franklin tie into that plotline? Seeing as how he's just a baby, it seems unlikely that he'll be the massive force that defeats Galactus, though his powers will no doubt come into play by the end of the film. We know from at least one teaser that Galactus will be after Franklin in exchange for the safety of Earth, presumably due to the immense power within the child. This will allow for audiences to appreciate the importance of Franklin Richards moving forward without having to actually display his incredible powers, at least in full. Then there's the negative zone, which instead of the quantum realm, could serve as the new space where dimensional instability exists. Basically, the negative zone is an antimatter universe that connects all other realities, and is most frequently connected to the Fantastic Four. The negative zone is typically ruled over by a being known as Annihilus, who is a frequent enemy of the Fantastic Four. In the Secret Wars comic, the negative zone serves as Battleworld's core. It could very well be that Reed Richards encounters the negative zone in First Steps, setting us up for some truly wild explorations in Secret Wars. Now, all that said, and there's a lot that was just said, at the time of this video, we still haven't seen Fantastic Four First Steps, and so this has all been borderline meaningless speculation. Still, there could be something here. The MCU has utilized a bunch of comic book concepts and storylines in the past, and with Secret Wars being the literal title of one half of the upcoming Avengers movies, it seems reasonable that the comic book version would have something to say about these future installments. Add in the fact that First Steps, again, leads directly into Doomsday, and you can see where some of my assumptions and theories come from. Now, if I'm being honest, I doubt anything other than Franklin Richards' importance will come to pass in Fantastic Four, though I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Dr. Doom cameo. I probably should have talked about Dr. Doom. As much fun as it is to speculate about these big tentpole releases, Marvel's modus operandi tends to hedge toward keeping the big tie-in moments for the post-credits scenes. And even then, as we saw with Thunderbolts or even the Marvels, those tie-ins tend to be far less direct than we often pitch them as. If I were a gambling man, I'd bet on Franklin Richards displaying some semblance of his powers, and for Dr. Doom to make a small cameo. Past that, it seems unlikely that Fantastic Four First Steps will actually do much to tie in directly to Avengers Doomsday. Instead, we'll most likely keep things nice and contained for a general audience. But what say you, true believers? Let me know in the comments how you think the Fantastic Four will lead into Avengers Doomsday. Or if you're watching this after the movie's already out, in the distant future, you can go ahead and nag me for being full of crap. Go ahead, I can take it. Either way, I appreciate you watching this video, and as always, thank you so much for watching ScreenRant.